All right, folks, welcome back to Talking Soccer. My name is Justin Horniker. I'm your host, and we're going to run down Group G and Group H as we are finally through match day 1 of the World Cup. We'll have a little bit of a rundown at the end of this video of what the standings look like, and looking ahead to tomorrow's England-US game, I'm already getting a tad bit nervous. But first, let's talk about the action today. And it was an interesting day of soccer because for those of you like me who got up at 4 in the morning to watch Switzerland and Cameroon play to a 1-0 game where Switzerland scored early and then everyone just kind of passed the ball around. And then after that, you sat through a Uruguay-South Korea matchup that, again, everyone just kind of passed the ball around and sat off, which is an interesting matchup. We'll talk about that in a second. But it really was neither team wanting to pressure the ball at all. But then you had a Portugal and Ghana matchup that through the first half was going the same way and then completely went off the rails. And then a Brazil-Serbia game that had Brazil playing some beautiful, beautiful soccer. So first, let's check in with that Uruguay-South Korea matchup. Like I said, 0-0 Uruguay come in as the favorite. Not to win the group, but definitely to make it out of the group. I actually have them, going somewhat far in my table. And this did not do much to reassure me that I made the right choice. Uruguay looked very, I don't know if this is a indicator of, being the kind of favored team. If this is just because South Korea knew that they had to sit back a little bit, especially, with the fitness level that Heung-min Son is in, and Uruguay kind of being the favorite. But they did not play a lot of intensity on the ball. And I think this team is, especially when they get to the knockout rounds, it's going to be much better suited because they are a team that wants to hit you on the counter. They are a team that, can be compact. They play in, your typical 4-4-2 that can squish those lines together very well. But in this game, when Uruguay and South Korea are kind of trying to do the same thing, it just leads to kind of a lifeless matchup. And that is to say that, it wasn't all bad. There were some good moments here. Good games from Bentancur, Valverde hit the post, hit the crossbar. Oliveira had a great game at left back for Uruguay. South Korea, defense was incredibly solid. Son looked good, especially for where he's been, coming back from the nose injury. Didn't look bad, that's for sure. Imagine breathing in warm weather with a broken nose. It's tough. But at the end of the game, Uruguay have 56% possession, South Korea 44%, and I don't think Uruguay are necessarily the team that wants to play with that much of a possession advantage. And I think you see that with how they play out and just kind of waiting to hit on the counter. That's what Darwin is good at. That's what Luis Suarez is good at for the most part. They're not necessarily a team that's going to, want to possess you to death. So that game ends 0-0, and let's move on to the other game in Group H, which was Portugal and Ghana. So Portugal end up winning this game 3-2, but not without a lot of just craziness. We go into the half 0-0, and it looks like it's going to be another scoreless game. At that point, we had not seen a goal in 90 plus, 200 plus minutes of soccer. There we go. That's math. Way to go, baby. Over 200 minutes of soccer, and it goes into the second half. Ronaldo gets a pen that is definitely a weak penalty, and Ronaldo kind of feels contact and goes down. You look at it, there's nothing in it. That's a call that yesterday happened in the box in multiple games that didn't get a call. But here gets a call. Ronaldo scores, makes it 1-0. Then Ayew comes back in the 73rd minute, Andre Ayew, and shocks him, puts it right back. Ball don't lie. This is one of those goals that is just, the ball is just bouncing around. Ayew's the one that gets on the end of it. João Felix then comes right back in the 78th minute on the break, kind of splits the Ghana defense, lofts it over the goalkeeper. Just a kind of a beautiful strike. João Felix, need to get him out of Atleti. He's just rotting in Madrid. Need to get him off that team so he can actually play some more beautiful soccer. But that was a great goal. Lau comes on for Ronaldo, scores almost immediately. So from the 65th minute that you had your first goal, Felix scored in the 78th, Lau scores in the 80th minute, Ayew scored in the 73rd, and then Bukhari scores in the 89th minute for Ghana to make it 3-2. And then coming up on the end of the game, as Costa is like kind of, slowing things down, bounces the ball, rolls it out. Inaki Williams was down behind the play, gets up and kind of plays possum, sneaks around. Costa steals the ball. Unfortunately, he slips as he gets the ball, isn't able to get back up and convert in like the 99th minute of play. So Portugal almost dropped points at the last minute because of Costa's time wasting, which would have been fantastic. But here we are, 3-2. Portugal go through with 3 points in a game that Ghana's the 61st ranked CONCACAF team, and they played them very close. I'm worried about that Portugal team. Bruno Fernandes had a fantastic game. Otavio, Silva, Cancelo, Guerrero, all a great game. João Felix had a great game. Ronaldo played fine, but if I'm Portugal, I am playing, if I'm Fernando Santos, I'm playing Rafael Leao. I'm starting him over Ronaldo. He came into the game, had an instant impact, and up until then, their offense hadn't necessarily been great throughout the first half and throughout a lot of the second half. So, that's the adjustment I'm making, but we'll see. If they keep going, if they play like this again against a tougher opponent, they're going to be in some trouble, that's for sure. And, maybe a lot of that is just kind of letting your guard down against a Ghana team, too. So, I guess we probably shouldn't read too much into that, but, going up against Uruguay, I think that's maybe a opportunity for them to get, smacked on the counter by a team that has a little bit more quality in their finish. All right, so let's move on to Group G now. First off, we had Switzerland and Cameroon. Switzerland goal from Mbolo in the 48th minute, assisted by who else but Zerdan Shaqiri. And that's kind of it. This game was one of those kind of, it was a 4 a.m. wake up. Jan Sommer had a great game at goalkeeper. Like I said, Xhaka had a great game. Shaqiri had a pretty good game. And they just, they got that goal and they tightened it up and they slowed the game down. And possession-wise, it's 50-50. Expected goals-wise, Switzerland at 1.45 to Cameroon's 0.75. They kept things pretty tight. They got their goal, and after that, Cameroon did not have many chances. Cameroon had one big chance, and that came in the first half. So for the most part, they limited them to shots with a lot of bodies in front, shots outside the box. And once you get that goal, that's all you need. They go up, and especially out of their second half play, they got that goal early, and then from there, they dominated Cameroon, I would say. So let's move on from there. I don't have a ton to say about that game because I was sleepy, and it wasn't very exciting, to a game that I was much more awake for, that was much more exciting. That is Brazil 2, Serbia 0. And this is one of those games where, from the start, you could tell Brazil was buzzing, but Serbia had a lot of defensive structure, a lot of defensive solidity, and as Brazil would bounce the ball around the pitch, Serbia stayed pretty strong. Serbia played in kind of a 3-5-1-1 where they had a nice steady line and really compressed with Mitrovic playing up top. And he's the type of player who doesn't need much when he's fit. I think the issue is that he isn't entirely fit yet. Maybe rushed back for this game. Didn't have a ton of chances. And Brazil just are that good of a team and just swarmed them. And Serbia did really well throughout the first half and really throughout the first 60 minutes or so. Then Rich Arlison breaks through in the 62nd minute and then again in the 73rd minute on an overhead bicycle kick from Vinny Jr. off of Vinny Jr. assist. That's just a phenomenal, beautiful goal. It's really that second goal, if you go back and watch it, it's top tier. It's what you think about when you think about Brazilian soccer. It comes quick. It comes from in-close passing, a switch of the play, and a cross that is a little bit out of reach for Rich Arlison, but is right in his wheelhouse for an overhead kick. And I think what's crazy to me is that Rich Arlison is this effective for Brazil. He hasn't scored. He scored 2 Champions League goals, but hasn't scored a single Premier League goal this year for Spurs. And they prefer him over Gabriel Jesus, who's been, really good for Arsenal this season. That's just wild to me about how well I would say Tite is at kind of towing that line, putting everybody in the soup, because Brazil's roster is just unreal. Off the bench, you had Rodrigo, Fred, Anthony, Gabriel Jesus, and Gabriel Martinelli. And that's leaving, so much talent on the bench that you don't even utilize. But I think they got the starting roster right. Richarlison had a great game. Vinny Jr. had a great game. You could see how dominant they were out in the wings, how dominant they were out wide. Casemiro was immense this entire game. Neymar, I think, is like the one player that doesn't have a great game. And speaking of Neymar goes down late in this game off a crunching tackle, as reported on Telemundo. I don't know if they talked about it on Fox, but on Telemundo, they're talking about how he was in significant pain after the game. So if you look at it, I'll try to put this picture here. This is a tackle that he received in the closing minutes. You can see he gets kind of crunched in the ankle, definitely rolls it. So is that, sprained ankle? Is that something a little bit worse? Ankles are weird. You can be in so much pain one day and they'll be fine 2 days later. So he's probably okay, especially if we haven't heard anything yet necessarily, but something to keep in mind as we are kind of dissecting the rest of this group. So that is where we stand after match day 1. Let's talk about these groups. So Group A, Netherlands and Ecuador lead with 3 points each. Senegal and Qatar had 0 points, and both those games were 2-0. Group B, England with 3 points, topping Wales and USA with 1 point, and Iran with 0. I'm nervous about this game tomorrow because the U.S., probably need a result. I wrote in my Dimers preview that, you could look at this as being a draw because the U.S. haven't allowed more than 2 goals in well over a year, and England, for as good as they looked against Iran are kind of in turmoil. I don't know how much you can really make off that game, especially because in England's build-up, they weren't playing well in the League of Nations, in the Nations League, not the League of Nations, in the Nations League, including a 3-3 draw against the Germany team who looked real bad, or, at least lacked a finish. So I think that game could easily be a 1-1, especially with the emotions, especially with all the pressure there. So if you can tag a point off of England, then you're going into that Iran game playing and feeling a little bit better about yourself, that if you can get a win, no matter how the Wales game goes, now you're just looking at a win, you're looking at goal differential. If you lose here, now you're needing Wales to not win by that much. You're needing Wales to also capitulate to England. And I don't like relying on a Welsh-English blowout in order to move on to the knockouts. It really shows you how much of a lost opportunity, that second half against Wales was. But we don't need to talk about that anymore. We talked about that plenty on this video earlier this week. So Group C, Saudi Arabia lead the way with 3 points. They'll be taking on Poland next. Poland has 1 point because they drew Mexico, and Mexico take on Argentina, 0 points, who of course lost to Saudi Arabia 2-1. That's a must win for Argentina on Saturday. Mexico got to be feeling a little bit nervous knowing they're going to go up against that buzzsaw with a chip on their shoulder, which could be a spectacular failure if Argentina can't pull off a win there either. Group D, France in the lead with 3 points, Tunisia and Denmark both with 1 point, and Australia with 0 points. I think we all kind of expect what's going to happen there. Group E, Spain lead the way with Japan. Spain scored 7 on Costa Rica. Japan, with their 2-1 win over Germany, are also in second place there, and Germany at 0, and have that game against Spain coming up. And that's another one where Japan probably beat Costa Rica just because of Costa Rica did not look good, and outside of a Keylor Navas just wonder game, which of course he's capable of, Japan are probably at least going to grab a point there. So if you're Germany, you at least need to grab a point off Spain. Spain, as we talked about yesterday, completed 974 passes against Costa Rica. That's going to be interesting. Group F, Belgium leading the way with 3 points, although they barely pulled it out against Canada. Canada outplayed them. Croatia with 1 point, Morocco with 1 point. This is an interesting group because I think Canada, if they play as well as they played against Belgium, if they keep exploiting Alphonso Davies down the wing, if they keep exploiting those strengths of theirs, Herdman did a fantastic job in his game plan against Belgium. Kevin De Bruyne, if he still looks like this all tournament, I think this group is very much up in the air. Canada could definitely beat Croatia, although Luka Modric specifically called it out after their performance against Morocco that he wasn't happy with how he played and how they played. So they're going to be coming into that one with the chip on their shoulder as well. And if Canada end up losing to Croatia, then it's kind of done. So they need to grab points in that game as well. Group G, of course, we talked about that. Brazil and Switzerland leading the way with 3 points. Cameroon and Serbia with 0. Group H, Portugal lead with 3 points. South Korea and Uruguay with 1. And then Ghana with 0. So that's where the table set up heading into match day 2. Already some much must-win games for some tournament favorites, honestly. Germany, Argentina need points. If they lose, if they drop points, that tension, that drama is just going to, be turned up. Manuel Veth had a good piece in his Gegenpressing Pod newsletter talking about Germany on the verge of another failure and just like how much that's going to reverberate back in Germany, their football powerhouse, and back-to-back World Cups. Something just hasn't been right in the soup. So let me know what you think, who's going to advance after match day 1. Would love to know. Let me know down in the comments below. If this is your first time finding my video, make sure you subscribe. I've been putting out recap videos every day as well as preview shorts as well that they might find you. And we need to talk about the Women's Champions League that just wrapped up. I'll make time for a video. I gotta get ready for Thanksgiving, but sometime this weekend we'll have that video going. In the meantime, thank you all so much for coming aboard, and we'll talk very, very soon.